Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Away Games, the Chicago Cubs baseball podcast. I'm one of the hosts. I'm Kevin McCaffrey, and the other one is also here, not here physically, but here via the microphone and Zoom. Adam Amwala, what's up?
How's it going? I am here. You will not hear any sounds of large air conditioners or subways. This week, we are recording via Zoom. Still in the same part of town, but not physically next to each other.
Yeah, man. The Cubs are 11-3 as we publish this right now, which is lovely.
You're goddamn right they are.
And it's going so well. You had a victory cigar before the game was over yesterday. You smoked the first cigar of your life?
I did. You know, sometimes Deb Mamawala listens to this podcast, and I don't know if she'll be disappointed in me, Mom. If you're listening, I'm so sorry. I didn't inhale because that's not what you're supposed to do. This is like the Bill Clinton defense. I literally didn't inhale.
Yeah.
It was enjoyable. We hung out. Kevin did come over last night for part of the game. We hung out with my friend Alex, who's another big Cubs fan and friend of the pod. Maybe one of the first friends of the pod.
Yeah, I think so.
He was an early listener.
He bought stock early, and the stock has gone up basically with inflation, like slightly, not enough so that it's really helping the portfolio too much, but it's a higher value than it was.
That is true. No, it's absolutely true. And we hung. I don't want to jinx it, but the two games that we've watched on my roof, pretty good. Because thinking about the first game after the last podcast we recorded, like if we had been sitting on my roof watching the Cubs lose like 13-1 or whatever that crazy score, like that would not have been that fun. It would have been more about the social aspect of it. So we've done all right so far.
Yes. And I mean, it was weird to be coming off that 13-1 loss. I do appreciate when the Cubs have been losing this year. The losses, I feel like, have been just like, who cares? This game is a big mess.
Yeah, when you lose 12-7, it's like, what does that even mean? And then the one against the Royals, like.
Right. And it's helpful to lose like that if you're going to lose, because you don't have to, especially when you're managing a bullpen, you don't have to use your highest leverage guys in high intensity situations. And you can sort of take that time, especially with the slightly expanded rosters, to get guys time when you're having trouble getting them into the lineup or onto the mound otherwise. So you can use it in a productive way. So that's been very nice. But it was weird to come off that big loss and then have no baseball for the weekend.
Yep, we should have known that it would not be our predicting the next week that was a problem in terms of the Cubs' wins and losses. It would be literally whether or not they played games. Because I mean, when we recorded the last time, we were thinking like, all right, well, you got one more in Kansas City, 3 in St. Louis, and then maybe 1 in Cleveland before we talk again. Nope, just 2 games. They split them. And, I'm fine with it. If anything, I was concerned about having a long layover because of how hot the Cubs had been. Like, if you come out of the gate and you're 5-5, maybe it's a good thing to have a few days to be like, all right, let's recalibrate and get back to it. But yeah. Oh, before we talk about our beloved Cardinals, I should mention, because we always bury this, please follow us at Away Games Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. Email us at awaygamespodcast@gmail.com. And we once again have a sponsor for this week. And the pod is even sweeter. I checked our email, Kevin.
Yeah.
If fans go to Thrive Fantasy and they deposit $20, they get a free $20. So we've doubled the free money that you can get.
So people are just getting $20.
They're just getting $20.
You put 20. So that, I mean, that is that the return on investment is insane. That is, I mean, the Mets should get in on it because it sounds fake. It sounds like a pyramid scheme. It's not. It sounds Madoff-esque. It's not. You go in with 20, you get 20 if you go to Thrive Fantasy and use our promo code.
Yes, you use promo code AWAYGAMES, all one word, and it's super fun. You do prop bets. It's like a lot of the things that if you're watching a game, you're like, I wonder if you could like put money on. Yes, you can. You can do it at Thrive Fantasy.
Yes.
You can bet on strange things and have a great time.
Heck yeah, Thrive Fantasy Away Games is our promo code, and you're helping the podcast by doing it too. About our beloved Cardinals on one of the other Cubs podcasts, the one that has real Cubs on it all the time. To be fair, we have real Cubs on this podcast sometimes. Ian Happ, the Ian Happ hosted Compound podcast, As he put it, he said, "We got off to a hot start. Cardinals try to halt the season. Is that so?" Is what he said. So he was feeling that. He did say, from what he heard, everyone's symptoms were pretty mild, and he's hoping everyone was okay. But it is funny to hear the players having the having the sort of joking conversations that we as fans also have, where it's like,
well, look, I'm sure for the Cubs, it was incredibly frustrating to have flown to St. Louis and then presumably be like sitting on the tarmac, or maybe have like just gotten to their hotel and be informed. So here's the thing, like, I'm sure it's, and yes, obviously the paramount concern is everybody's health. Even if somebody gets sick by being an idiot, the concern is still their health. And with the Cardinals, we really don't know. And I think we talked about this a little bit last week. Like, you could just be unlucky, and you could also be around somebody who's being a moron, as we've talked about a little bit with the Indians.
Yeah.
But the level of selfishness that we're seeing from some players, it's really hard to wrap your head around, especially when these guys, especially on the Indians, have teammates who, like Carrasco, beat leukemia last year, or Francona, who had cancer, and the idea that it's really worth going out to a bar to potentially, put a friend, presumably, and teammate at risk it's hard to comprehend.
Yeah, Carrasco beat leukemia, and now he has to beat having the dumbass Mike Clevenger as a teammate, which is also something you have to overcome. Mike Clevenger, I also want to say, is he's a piece of shit. This guy clearly seems to be a bad person. Yeah. I will say.
You know what, Kevin? Give me Steve Clevenger over Mike Clevenger every goddamn day.
And I'm not sure he's so great, but
is he bad? I don't know anything about him.
But Mike Clevenger, he's on the Trevor Bauer. I'll say the Trevor Bauer, Justin Verlander, Alex Bregman all-star team of guys who talk a lot of shit until anything happens, and then they clam up and get very political. And he gave a dumb apology that didn't even really seem sincere, and it was barely an apology. But what I did enjoy was that Adam Plutko, the fill-in starter for Cleveland, this is what he said about Mike Clevenger and Zach Plesac, two Cleveland pitchers, as we said, who snuck out of the hotel in Chicago and violated protocol. Plesac at least drove home. Clevenger lied about it, then got on a plane with everybody. And then it came out afterwards, after he exposed everyone on the plane. So what Plutko said was, they lied to us. They sat here in front of you guys and publicly said things that they didn't follow through on. It's going to be up to them. It really is. I'll let them sit here and tell you how they're going to earn their trust back. I don't need to put words in their mouth. The term that I continue to hear, and excuse my language, is grown-ass man. So those two grown-ass men can sit here and tell you guys what happened and tell you guys what they're going to do to fix it. I don't need to do that for them. I think Plutko put it pretty well there.
I think that's perfectly said, and I'm glad that he said it, because I'm sure that's not an easy thing to do, especially as I don't know a lot about. Is Plutko is he a younger guy, or is he kind of like he's middle of his career? Yeah,
he's not like Mike Clevenger is a top end rotation guy on that team. So it's in the baseball hierarchy. This is you don't often hear guys speaking out in such stark terms. I think. Less established guys versus more established guys. But Clevenger, I mean, everything we know about the guy is not good, I think, so far. And the way he handles himself like a D-bag, and he's acting like a D-bag, and that continues. I just we like rooting for players and people we like. I think, Adam, you and I are both like that. And there is something I can enjoy when I can dislike a person based on the content of their character in sports too. So Clevenger at least gives us that.
Bauer's a confusing one, because there are elements of his like his YouTube stuff and his outspokenness strictly in a baseball way that I do enjoy. Like, I enjoy him calling out Manfred for being an asshole. I enjoy him doing like videos where he's breaking down pitches, or he even did, I think I sent you and Ken that video where he's talking about like basically like how I fucked up in Game 5 of the World Series against the Cubs, a breakdown, and he like goes through pitch by pitch of like, this is what I shouldn't have thrown to Chris Bryant, and then he hit a homer off me, and like all of that stuff is cool.
Yes.
And then every time I'm starting to think I maybe enjoy him a tiny bit he'll say or tweet something so offensive to me that I'm like, oh, how could I have forgotten that this is exactly who this guy is?
I think what people and I think what can be enjoyable about Trevor Bauer is he just says more than a lot of other players do. So there's just it's the thing where it's like, okay, so there's more content, but what is the content, you know? But Trevor Bauer, who was also very upfront about how all the spin rates in Houston, the gains in spin rate were impossible without cheating, which he would never do. Trevor Bauer now has the highest spin rate on, I believe it's 3, if not 4 different pitches going into his free agent year. And yet, we're not hearing anything about it from Trevor Bauer. So, I mean, it's just the hypocritical, quiet, you know.
Yeah, he is buddies with the pitching ninja guy, so maybe he's got some sneaky stuff going on. Yeah, I think the most recent Bauer thing I saw that was like, oh, fuck you, dude. It was like, tweeted something to the effect of like, so why don't we just call it like a protest at baseball games? Every baseball game's a protest, and then I guess people can show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Trevor Bauer is a dumb man's idea of a smart man, I think, you know. It's like he's
like Joe Rogan for baseball.
Yeah, I think he's kind of Joe Rogan for baseball a little bit. He's like, have you ever considered this deep thought? And you can be like, well, yes, and it's wrong in every way. And it's like, but is it? Yes, it is, Trevor. He's a dumb person's idea of a smart person. So yeah, there we go. So we're just shitting on other pitchers today, but I think it's warranted. And the Cubs lineup did a pretty good job of shitting on pitchers yesterday. Cleveland had not given up 4 runs all year until they gave up 4 RBIs to Jason Hayward alone, and the rest of the lineup was doing work last night.
Why does Hayward always do that? Don't you feel like it always happens that way, where you're just like so down on him, and then he comes out of nowhere and has like a 3 or 4 hit day where he drives in a bunch of runs?
And that's kind of all you need from Hayward offensively is, you know, flashes of, and, you know, something nearing consistent competence is great. But, you know, yeah, he had a very good game yesterday, and that brought his short sample size stat line up to still below average, but, you know, closer to fine, I guess. But yeah, I mean, when you see Hayward drop the bat and just hit a line drive that feels like it's still going into right field, he just hammered that ball. It's tantalizing because you just don't get, like, why can't the launch angle be like that more frequently? But, you know, baseball's hard, I think, is the answer why in that instance.
But yeah, I mean, you know, Plutko he pitched pretty admirably, I'd say, given the situation. Because I guess he probably was charged with 5 runs, but he gave up 3 of them before he exited, and then I think it was like the first pitch from the reliever was that home run to Hayward. So, yeah, I mean, you see Kipnis getting a double in his first at bat as an opposing player in Cleveland. Did you see the tweet about Rizzo showing him around?
Yeah, showing him all the places he celebrated.
Yeah. That's some fun ribbing.
Yes, and that feels very on brand for Rizzo too. I very much liked that they had like a video presentation for Kipnis and his time with the Indians, and he like took his hat off and like saluted the crowd, and the Cubs dugout gave him a standing ovation upon his return to Cleveland, it's just continuing that the Cubs dugout is the most fun dugout in baseball right now.
Totally. And you could hear him so loud. You could hear him so loud on the Kipnis double. I mean, all game you can, but like specifically if you look up that play, they're like screaming from the dugout. And I don't feel like I'm hearing the other team's dugouts nearly as much. I know I'm probably listening for the Cubs dugout more, but like it does seem like they're louder.
I think they certainly are louder, and we've heard Ross comment on that. We've heard we've heard Bryant comment on it. Several players have been like, yeah, it's a loud dugout and the energy is going to be there. And also your dugout tends to be louder when the scoreboard is in your favor, I think, you know, like losing makes you quiet, and the Cubs haven't done a lot of losing yet. So I think that's also a reason, but it does seem like a conscious choice that they're choosing. This is a team that's having fun. They're choosing to be particularly energetic about this, and choosing to, again, like, you know, not have, knock on wood, anything like the situation with the Cleveland pitchers or the rumored Cardinals going to the casino thing. Like, this is, it seems like the Cubs are really leaning into being the best at being responsible about how they handle this and just bringing fun and energy to these empty ballparks. And that seems like it's turning into a pretty good competitive advantage.
Right. And I think it kind of starts from the top. I don't even mean Epstein, but I think just about every word that's come out of David Ross's mouth this year in an interview has been exactly what I would want to hear from a manager. And
Yeah.
that makes me feel really good because I think you and I both were sad to see Madden go, even if it seemed like maybe it was the kind of the natural end to that kind of, window for the Cubs, as it were, not in terms of winning, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the Madden arc was over, and I think that's fine. And follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter. Also, hey, Twitter people, relax about Joe Madden. There's like this. There's some like weird. I feel like constant, still like sniping about Joe Madden's time here on the Twitter
really?
timeline a little bit. Yeah,
I think I've missed that.
I'm seeing. Well, good. It's dumb. Joe Madden's the best Cubs manager of our lifetime by a lot. It's not close. If David Ross hits his 95th percentile projection, maybe he's Joe Madden. And we can all hope for better. And Ross can be the best manager for today. But let's remember how good Madden was.
I mean, I'm really more of a Mike Quaddy guy, but Madden's it's a solid number 2.
Oh yeah, the Quaddy year. Everyone remembers where they were. You mentioning Kipnis' day too. That's one thing I did want to point out, a little upside downside thing with the Cubs right now. I love what Kipnis has been doing. He's not going to WRC plus well over 200 for the rest of the year, but he's got 5 extra base hits already. He takes his walks when he's up there. And I think what we're seeing is a contrast to Nico's offensive profile. Extra base hits and taking walks. These are things that Nico has not done. And I'm starting to feel like I'm still a believer in Nico Horner as a good baseball player, but I'm hopeful that we're going to see more Kipnis time at second and more Bodie time at second. Because Nico was rushed very quickly. And he had very few at-bats in the minors total.
Oh, he was like sitting on a couch in California and they were like, hey, can you be at Petco Park tonight?
Yeah, and he showed up and did fine. But what we have to start realizing is that 752 was Nico's OPS in the minors in 2019. In the minors.
Yeah.
His OPS was 752. That's not lighting the world on fire. And what we've seen from him up here is, an Almora-like contact ability. And what we are also seeing is that contact doesn't do anything if it's hammered into the ground and there's no power to it. Nico only has 1 extra base hit so far in I think it's 38 at-bats. And he runs well, but he's not a base stealer yet. And I'm starting to wonder how much good we're doing Nico by having him up here in this moment and getting this much time. When I think Kipnis and Bodie should be getting a greater share of second base.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. But would the alternative be sending Nico to the taxi squad?
Right, and I think that's the argument for keeping him up on the team.
Right, because it's not like he's able to get like consistent ABs in AAA since it's not a thing.
Yeah, and I think the best argument for keeping him up with the big club right now is that, is sending him to South Bend. It's not like it's the AAA thing like Ian Happ went back to do, like Schwarber went back to do, where you're getting four at-bats a game. He's not going to get that anywhere. I think we just have to be a little more selective with how the Cubs are starting Nico, because he's right now, he's the 3rd best option at second base for my money. I think he's the best defender there. I feel the most comfortable with him there, but I would like to see Kipnis and Bodie getting a greater share there.
Yes, and speaking of David Bodie, hopefully he gets the start because it is Bodie Day today, 2-year anniversary of the home run, the ultimate grand slam.
Happy Bodie Day to everyone out there. That's fun.
Santa Maria.
Santa Maria, indeed. Also, good stuff. Ian Happ, my God.
Locked in.
His slash line right now, as we speak on Wednesday, 325, 438, 625. Good for a 189 weighted runs created plus. And David Ross, I think, I'm sure you saw the comments too, but he was talking about how the center field job, both sides of that platoon, is Ian Happ's right now. And I love hearing.
I love it. And I'm sure it feels really, really, really good for Ian Happ, who has not had a lot of clarity around what his position with this team is at any given moment. Even during that rookie year that he played so well. I think really since then it's kind of been up and down for him. And, you can tell Ross is trying to get Almora at bats, especially in, and whenever he comes in late as a defensive replacement or, in a blowout. I know he came in pretty early, but I'm willing to admit already, less than a month into the season, that like I'm done dreaming on Almora. I feel bad saying it, but like I think when we look back on Almora, it's not going to be that dissimilar from how we look back on someone like a Corey Patterson. It's like, this is somebody you like really dreamt on. You really saw the upside. You saw like an amazing first half of a season one time, but I unfortunately, I don't know that we're going to get a lot more from Almora than that.
Yeah.
I would love to be wrong, but at this point, I just don't think realistically he can even get the playing time to prove that. And nothing that he's done in his limited playing time has shown us that anything's different.
No, and I think that's not even necessarily a tragic thing. I think Almora has it in limited time, but we've seen him play defense like we thought he played defense. Like last year was a weird aberration. To me, Almora is a decent. He's a good guy to have on your team as a defensive replacement center fielder, which has value. It does. I mean, ideally, you like that defensive replacement center fielder maybe to also be someone who can be your pinch runner to go steal a base. The Cubs don't steal bases, though. By the way, they have 3 stolen bases in 14 games, and 2 of them were in a weird scenario where Souza just took a base that no one was on. That's one of them.
And then Happ followed him, yeah.
And then Happ followed him. That's 2 of the 3 steals. So the Cubs just don't steal, at least until Ian Miller maybe gets called up later this year from South Bend, who's the resident Terrence Gore signing, basically.
Almora doesn't steal, but we know that he can tag up from first and go to second. And I would love to see that in this series. That would be fun.
I mean, we had a slow grounder to Bryant that already.
We had a number of things that were kind of reminiscent of stuff that we had seen. There was a couple slow grounders to Bryant. There was actually one that he booted in the 9th inning. It was almost funny because it didn't really matter. But there was that. There was a hit that Schwarber had that was like a seed to right field that was very reminiscent of that single through the hole.
Yes.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that Lester did throw a wild pitch at one point. It did not score 2 runs, but
yes.
I think he bounced one.
Yes.
You know what? I was going to say one last thing. Go ahead.
Kipnis also scored on a wild pitch, but for the right team.
Kipnis sliding in. Yeah, yes. Kipnis sliding into home. I was like, oh man, I can like picture it in my mind how fired up he was when he was that second runner scoring. So I was wondering all game, and I'm sure I will tonight, like how much these guys are thinking of that, especially, any of the guys on the Cubs who were there that year. Like, there's no way you could be on that field or in that dugout or in that clubhouse or, of course, in that weight room if they're hanging out there without thinking about it. I would assume they're not even using any of that because everything's like, in the concourse or whatever. But
yeah, and with no fans there, it must just feel like their own World Series museum, kind of. It's just like this is the artifact where we did this thing, and they can. And as you say, I mean, museum guide Anthony Rizzo has given the tours, so that's fun.
But even like certain camera angles, because we've all watched footage of those 2 games, and especially Game 7, so many times that. I kept having like flashbacks in obviously a positive way where they would show that angle from like third base to first, and you just like you can picture that final play, or even a couple times after somebody got a hit, you could see that kind of like mesh area where there's fans almost like below, and I'm just like picturing what that looked like when Rajai Davis hit that home run. It's always cool. I think the Cubs have played there once, I think, in between then and this series, right? I feel like they played maybe a couple of years ago there.
Yeah, I think so.
I remember.
I think so. But it's a fun place to come back and visit. Also, we have we have the starting pitching reshuffled a little bit, right? With this restart.
We do, and it's something that we've alluded to before, and I think a lot of people who follow the Cubs have alluded to, which is that having Mills and Hendricks back to back while they're both nasty, it's a bit of a similar look for a team to get to face those guys back to back. So basically what happens is rather than like reset the whole rotation and just have it start the same way, Lester got the start last night because he would have started against the Cardinals on Friday. And now they're just starting back over with 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll be Lester and then Hendricks, Darvish, Chatwood, Mills, and then Lester again before we get back to Hendricks.
Right. So you're breaking up. You're breaking up the right-handers who throw in the 89 to 92 range, more 92 if you're Mills and 89 if you're Hendricks.
We're breaking up the would it be insulting if I called Hendricks and Mills the professor and the adjunct professor?
No, I think that's fine. I think the adjunct. I'm hoping Alex. I'm hoping
he might get tenure.
I want Alec Mills to get tenure. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, my pick for breakout of the year on our preview pod.
Looking solid so far.
Yeah, looking great. Everyone in that rotation. John Lester. I mean, it's like we can talk about John Lester, but it's just looking great so far. He started last season great, and he looks great right now. And he's not allowing much hard contact. The hard contact he allowed yesterday were both right into the ground, I think, from what I'm remembering. And he just looks like he knows what he's doing. And he was quoted, too, talking about how he's enjoying that it kind of, for him, feels like the playoffs already, like just going straight to a playoff race.
He seems like it. I went back and rewatched some clips because, as it turns out, when you watch an entire baseball game on a phone, you miss some stuff.
Yes.
This is what we're working with on my roof.
Yes.
There was I think maybe in the second or third inning, he had a full count and let somebody go and just kind of like, opened up and missed by like 3 feet. And you could hear him scream, "God damn it."
Yes.
So he even in front of no fans, he is still very much John Lester. It would have been awesome if they had sold cardboard cutouts just for this game and Cubs fans had bought more cardboard cutouts than Cleveland fans.
Yeah, I mean, as we've talked about with Milwaukee, and and the Cubs have a series with Milwaukee coming up. They really should have a dedicated percentage of Cubs cutouts if they want to feel like
just a caravan of Cubs cutouts driving cars to Cleveland from Chicago.
Yes, I mean that's a very it's I'm having a visual like at like a carnival where they have the horse race game where you like throw the ball up and it just sort of hops along as this 2-dimensional cardboard thing. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite dumb games at a casino. Have you ever seen that where they have the little mini horses that go around the track?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Great.
They don't have that at Thrive Fantasy. I'm very sorry.
They don't, but you can get your own games going at Thrive Fantasy with the away games code. Yeah. So we've got one thing as far as the positive developments of this week. Colin Ray coming up and looking pretty good. That velocity was popping up 95, 96 yesterday.
He looks very good. Yeah, I really, honestly, I don't feel like I knew that much about him. I think I always kind of defer to you on anything prospecty, but, and it looks like his velocity's up a few ticks, right?
Yes, it is. It's, when he pitches as a starter, which he's been most of his career, and he was the Pacific Coast League Pitcher of the Year last year in AAA. Huh. Insanely, the offense was insanely inflated in AAA last year, but he had an ERA under 4 and was named Pitcher of the Year. And he usually sits more, I think, around 92, 93 as a starter. But hitting 95, 96 in relief in 2 innings yesterday, it really seems like a guy who can come in and give competent length out of that bullpen is going to be important. And Colin Ray, only a couple appearances, but was a hotshot prospect with San Diego, had some arm trouble. Was traded and then untraded with the Marlins. There was a weird situation with his physical and his arm. But yeah, Colin Ray looks like he might be one of those surprise bullpen guys that pops up every year and gives you some value. So that's
getting traded and untraded to the Marlins has to be like the only time that you're psyched about arm issues.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's like getting a snow day and then getting a snow day somehow. But yeah, I think Ray is another guy looking good, and the pitcher I'm not worried about is Chatwood, even though he got was it Keith Hernandez who said he got his tits lit up? Was that?
That's fantastic. I don't know who said it, but God bless him.
I think it was Keith. If not, forgive me. It was in the Mets booth. I know that. But it was that basically happened to Chatwood in Kansas City, and I'm not worried about it. His stuff still looked pretty good. He was missing bats. The command was off in the zone a little bit, and I think it was just one of those days.
But he wasn't walking people.
No, and I think there were a couple of those balls were those weird like low velocity, just the right angle, just right. One homer went off the foul pole in left. It was. Right.
By the way, I really hate the fake fans, the virtual digital fans. It's very unnerving and just unnecessary. Well, we know what reality is. What are we doing here?
I agree. That brings nothing to the table. We don't need that Fox. Also, we just the Cubs keep losing on Fox, but winning on Marquee. Is it a conspiracy? Who says
he thinks
no?
Not.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of who says no, I don't know if you listened to the most recent Compound podcast, but they were talking about Chatwood's start, and basically they were saying what you're saying, which is like, yeah, Chatwood wasn't pitching poorly. Like he left a couple, he hung a couple curveballs and sliders, but like largely he looked pretty good. His stuff was good. His velocity was good. It's just, he had had an unlucky start, rough start.
And as long as that doesn't shake him, too bad. I think that's fine. I really feel confident about Chatwood. Honestly, after that bad start, I'm like, maybe extend him. Like it's
now's the time. Buy low.
Yeah, I mean, also, extend Happ, extend Contreras in the same way. But it's sometimes, you and I in our main career are stand-up comics, or were, whatever you want to call it, but it's one of those things where like you have a series of great shows in a row and you get that thing where you're just like, oh, I guess I just get it. I guess I just kill every time now. This will be great from here on out. And then you have a sneaky bomb where it's like, what happened there? And I think that's what Chatwood had, which it doesn't mean he did anything wrong, but it's just like, oh, you're not 2015 Jake Arrieta like you look like for a minute, but that doesn't mean you're not good still. I still feel very confident with Chatwood.
Yeah, very much so. And I think, to be honest, that also makes you appreciate how incredible what Arrieta did was. And anybody who has a streak like that, where it's like, it is incredibly hard to have a run of 10 or 15 or 20 starts where you just never have a bad start.
Yeah. It's
because even the best pitchers get knocked around at least, once every couple months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jake Arrieta's year-long run spanning the course of 2 seasons is basically the most impressive year of pitching we've seen since 99 Pedro Martinez,
if you put those stats from the second half of 2015 and the first half of 2016 as one season, isn't that like, it literally historically would be like one of the best seasons ever in the history of baseball?
Yes. Yeah. So, and Jake Arrieta, free agent at the end of the year. We might have some openings. Just saying.
Do you think it would be nice, or would it be like, having Kerry Wood come back and you're more like attached to the version of him that you remember than what he actually is now?
Combination, I think. Because he's not that Arrieta, of course, but it depends. I'm just saying, depends on the money, depends on what he wants to do. But Jose Quintana, who will be returning to the Cubs this week, we think, by the end of the week in some fashion. He's thrown a couple simulated games now. They've been working his pitch count up a bit. I think we're both of the mind. I mean, I guess I'll just start with I would like to see Quintana in the bullpen right now is what I would like to see.
Yeah. I'm with you as well. I guess the only question is, how comfortable is he doing that? And it could be one of those situations where like Mills's versatility works against him, and that like he's had more of a chance to come out of the pen. So maybe even though he 100% deserves to stay in the rotation, they think, well, Quintana really doesn't know how to do that, so let's throw Quintana back into the rotation and let Mills come in out of the bullpen. I think that would be unequivocally the wrong decision, but I could see that thought process. I got to say, it's deeply disappointing to me that I was in person for Quintana's first start as a Cub, and it may have been his best start as a Cub.
Yeah. Yeah. And he had he was like a brief Brewer killer, and the Cubs are facing Milwaukee this weekend. But yeah, I think it's not a huge sample, but what Mills has done since being called up has been better than Quintana as a Cub. So I just think, I think it's about present and about future. I want Mills in that rotation right now. And I think Quintana, honestly, could be just very helpful in the bullpen. If you have a guy like Ray, who's the right-hander who can give you some length, Quintana can be a guy who can give you a couple of innings out of the bullpen as against a more lefty-heavy lineup. And maybe just someone you can trust in the later innings, because we still don't know what the heck is up with Craig Kimbrell. He's working on, on some mechanical flaw, getting the release points more similar to what they used to be and more similar to each other. It seems like he's scrapping the changeup that I don't even think he's thrown in a game. But there was some talk about how even doing anything with the changeup was affecting his mechanics. So I think I would like to see Quintana, see if we shorten him up and if that gets some of that old value back. I think it would be a positive in both ways, but I think you're right that old baseball, like traditional thinking, Quintana would just go back into the rotation,
right.
But I'm hopeful that the Cubs are thinking a little more forward than that.
I tell you what, Alec Mills may have Wally pipped him.
I hope so. I mean, it's what trying to find a spot in our rotation for a good starting pitcher was not a problem I thought Cubs fans would have this year.
Yeah.
I didn't. Obviously, we're not going to have this 1970s Orioles like run of starting pitching or 90s Braves like. I don't think it's going to continue at quite this level the whole year. Where like a week ago, not one of the starters had a WHIP even equal to 1. I don't think that's going to happen. But it's 5 guys that I think we all feel pretty comfortable about going every game now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And didn't Quintana injure himself in a very like bizarre way? Was it like washing dishes?
Yes, extremely quarantine stuff. I mean, most of our lives now is just washing dishes and then putting new things on the dishes and then washing dishes. So yes, it's a very quarantine injury, but he cut his thumb. Yeah.
But let that be a lesson to you kids listening out there. If your parents ask you to do the dishes, say no. It's too dangerous.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
In these times, doing the dishes.
I actually have a pretty bad scar on my hand from a dish injury.
Do you really?
I do. It's you probably can't see it via the Zoom, but it's on my. It's not my pitching hand. Thank God. It's on my right. It's on my glove hand. Since I am a lefty, but I was washing like a big glass, and I had my hand in it, like with the sponge in there, and the glass just broke as I was like twisting my hand around, and just took a big old chunk out of the top of my hand. So, fortunately, it was an off-season injury. I was not in the midst of the softball season. I could have really been. I could have been Wally pipped, and you hate to see that.
You did with the Gotham Comedy Club softball team. You do what they need that bad in the lineup.
And I mean, it's very important to me because over the past 5 or 6 years, I've played probably about 70 or 80 games for Gotham Comedy Club, and I've done at least one spot at the club. So
yes,
it's really important to me.
You're mostly, as far as they're concerned, you're mostly a softball player. Yeah.
I swear you would appreciate this because it's so ridiculous that I think I just like didn't give a shit at some point. And I'll say his name. I don't care. The owner of Gotham Comedy Club, Chris Mazzilli.
Yeah.
I sent him an email one time asking to get booked on. They used to have like this TV thing. It was on like Access TV. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you've seen me perform recently, but here's a tape. Also, I'm on the Gotham Comedy Club softball team, and this is my slash line. And I just sent him my stats. There's a website that has all the stats, and I was having a good season. I think I was hitting like 500 or something like that.
You're Charlie Blackmon at the time.
Yeah, this is what I bring to the table.
Yeah, that's great. Sending a comedy club owner your slash line for his softball team is honestly. People get booked for less legit reasons, so that's
completely true.
Yeah,
I don't think he responded. To be clear,
now is the Comedy Club Softball League? Are they doing a bubble for the postseason as well, or is that?
They were thinking about it, but even in a bubble, comedians cannot be trusted.
I think that's extremely true. Yeah, if there was any group of people I trust less than baseball players, there's not a lot of groups I trust less to do the responsible thing. But I would say comedians I would trust less. Absolutely.
Yeah, and let it be known to our listeners that I have tried to recruit Kevin for this team, and it hasn't happened yet, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I'm going to need. I'm holding out. I'm not letting this collusion stand. I need to get a big contract for the union. Is what I'm doing.
We do have guaranteed contracts, 100% guaranteed.
Okay, cool. Well, then, Mazzilli knows where to find me, so he can do that.
Does he, though?
Yes, he does. I've headlined Gotham. It's been a while, but yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
That's only because your slash line was so impressive, though.
Yes, exactly. I'm a real Juan Pierre baseball wise. All stolen bases, absolutely no slugging, good defense and center. All right. I think that's pretty much all I got to talk about. Do you have anything else to hit on the way out?
Well, I mean, we've learned from the errors of our ways that one cannot predict anything of any sort in 2020, but theoretically, we don't have to make any predictions. But coming up, we've got one at Cleveland and then a nice homestand. We've got I think a 10-game homestand coming up. So following tonight's game, tonight being Wednesday, we've got 4 against Milwaukee and then 3 against St. Louis. So by the next time we talk, hopefully, who the hell knows what's happening with St. Louis? Have they said anything about this coming weekend? Because I know they're not playing the Pirates this week.
Yeah, the Pirates series was canceled. It's just getting to the point where I don't know why the Cardinals players wouldn't opt out. Because Rob Manfred, you might remember him from such things as trying to ruin baseball all the time. Rob Manfred said when asked about what about teams playing different numbers of games, he said, "Oh, there's this new thing called winning percentage." Yeah, well, if the Cardinals go 8-4 for the whole year, when you're playing a football season, which is basically what we're creeping up on with the Cardinals right now, is they just haven't played any games. There has to be a minimum number of games to qualify for the playoffs, and it's hard to believe that the Cardinals can get there. Certainly not get there safely. So I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, I think in this season, what we have to treat, it's a weird, fucked up season. What we have to treat it like is that being responsible, staying healthy, that's part of playing baseball this year. Being able to get your team on the field, and the Cardinals have failed in that way. For whatever reason, they've failed in that way. So, I don't know what they're going to do with that season, when they're going to start. I think, they after suspending some games, they were supposed to start up with the Cubs last Friday, and now it's like, well, how about this Friday? It's another whole week missed. So
yeah, and look, I'm not trying to paint all Cardinals fans as bigots or anything like that. And you and I both know Cardinals fans who are really quality people, yes. But it would also not surprise me if, to your point, if players start opting out. I wouldn't put it past a certain segment of Cardinals fans to be very understanding about Adam Wainwright opting out, and then think Dexter Fowler's being a little lazy for opting out.
Yeah, and
because there has been that kind of shit going on, specifically with Fowler in his time there, and it's very upsetting.
And there's been that kind of shit with every team and every fan base, including the Cubs fan base too.
Yeah, of course.
But yes, I think it's just a situation where it's going to get messy. It's already messy, and it's going to get even messier down there. If you want to contract the Cardinals and the Marlins, I say just do it. That leaves us an even 28. They're my 2 least favorite teams. I would be perfectly happy with that. But one very nice thing, with the Cubs are out to a 4.5 game lead here, and with series against Milwaukee and St. Louis, really a good chance to do some early putting your foot on the throat here.
Yeah, well, and we keep bringing it up, but in a season where probably most teams won't play 60 games, it puts even more emphasis on the early part of the season, and the Cubs have been terrific. And I think let's end with this. Our friend Alex, who we were watching the game with last night, he's a big Cubs fan, but not perhaps quite as intense as you and I are. He was asking us what's the difference this year? Why do you think they're playing so much better? What do you attribute it to?
I think several things. I think it's a sustained breakout from Ian Happ and Kyle Schwarber. I mean, Kyle Schwarber hasn't exploded in the same way, but he's hitting well and he's playing well. And I just think his second half breakout last year is for real. Wilson Contreras, same thing, sort of reaching what we thought about him. He's hitting the ball harder, more consistently than just about anyone. So I think it's a couple of sustained breakouts, and it's, I think, largely what I said last night, progression to the mean. I think this is a team that's better than what the record was last year, and we're just seeing it be better. And there's some David Ross component too. I think David Ross is doing a great job so far, but I think the for the most part, why the Cubs are 11-3, it's because this pool of talent is playing more like what that pool of talent actually is.
Yeah. I continue to be very impressed by Rossi, and needless to say, it's easier to say the right thing when you're 11-3 than if the Cubs are 3-11 right now. I think probably it would be a little harder to talk to the media via Zoom or however the hell they're doing it. But
yes.
From what I've seen of this team and from Ross and really everything around this team, it's been awesome. And I was actively sad to not be able to watch baseball this weekend. So it's nice it's been something to look forward to every day. So
Me too. It's I missed it when it was gone and appreciated it. Just realizing how nice it's been to have baseball to watch every day. So nice. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. The Cubs keep doing the right thing and staying lucky. And fingers crossed the same for all the other teams, so we can keep having the baseball to go watch and talk about.
Yeah, and if the Cardinals still can't play by next week when they're supposed to play the Cubs, just call them off. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed. And then just everyone gets a 3-game series off when they would have been playing that team. It sucks. That seems crazy, but this season's fucking crazy. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AwayGamesPod, and go over to Thrive Fantasy. Do some betting. Get $20 free if you put 20 down with the Away Games code. And that's all I got. You got anything else, Adam?
That's all I've got.
Let's get out of here. Go 11-3 again.